morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Masechet Succah, and we are on Daf Lamed Dalet, Amud Bet, on the top line of the Amud by the Mishnah. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zechut Refuah Shelema for Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid. That should have Refuah Shelema for Refuah Shelema of Michael Ben Nahid and Esther Bracha Bat Chaya, that you all have full recovery, Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Today's Amud is also being learned as a Zechut for the Neshama of Rachel Yafa Bat Netanel, whose yortzeit it was just now yesterday, and today's Amud is being dedicated by Shea family, Dayan family, and Kohen families. It should be an ultimate zechut for all the mishpachot. Amen. So we are starting a new Mishnah of how many of we discussed already the types of the Arba Minim, what each one is, what is Priyetz Hadar, what is Kapot Tmarim, what's Arve Nachal, and Anaf Etz Avot. Now how many of each do you need? One of each, two of each. And the Mishnah has a machloket between Tanaim, a three-way machloket. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Shlosha Hadasim, Ushte Aravot, Lulav Echad, Ve'etrog Echad. You need 3 Hadasim, 2 Aravot, 1 Lulav, and 1 Etrog. This sounds pretty much like what we do. And it seems like the halacha is like Rabbi Yishmael here, even though that we'll just have in a moment Rabbi Akiva, which usually halacha is Rabbi Akiva mechavero. But here it seems to be that our minhag is like Rabbi Yishmael. Momentarily we will see that Rabbi Yishmael perhaps does not end up being the halacha. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, that is the shita of Rabbi Yishmael. Afilu shnayim ktumim ve'echad she'no katum. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, afilu shelo shtar ktumim. Rabbi Yishmael holds that even out of the 3 hadasim, if 2 of them are snipped on the top, still will be kasher. Now this already makes Rabbi Yishmael's shita very questionable, because mima nafshach, make your mind, is hadas kasher without having the tip, or is hadas pasul without having the tip? If hadas is kasher without having the top of it intact, so then why do you need one of them to have the top? Let all of them be ktumim, snip, and it still will be kasher. And if you need the top to be intact, so then why 2 of them could be ktumim and only one of them has to be intact? In logic, it doesn't stand the test of why the difference. And the Gemara is going to ask this question, a very valuable question. And this is really the reason that this whole simple understanding that this should be the halacha will be challenged in the Gemara. But that is the shita of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Tarfon says none of the 3 needs to be intact. All of them could be ktumim. All of them could be snipped on the top and still is kasher. Why? Because Rabbi Tarfon holds that by hadas, you don't need hadar. As long as this is a hadas that is meshulash, the 3 leaves are coming out from the same place in the stem, in the branch, and you have the shiur of 3 tfachim, that's enough, it's avot, and you're good to go. Who says that you have to have the top even? That is because having the top is hidur mitzvah, it's hadar. If you need hadar, then it's pasul without it. If you don't need hadar, it still is hidur mitzvah, it still is better, but it's not a necessity. And that's the shita of Rabbi Tarfon. We don't have the concept of hadar, says Rabbi Tarfon, by hadas. We have it by, of course, etrog, priyetz hadar. We have it by lulav, as the Gemara made a hekesh between lulav and etrog, because it says them together without any divide between them. Ulkachtem lachem b'yom harishon priyetz hadar kapot temarim. It's mamash together, and therefore we learn the mitzvah of hidur, the fact that it has to be hadar from etrog to lulavas. But Hadassim, says Reb Tarfon, doesn't need to be hadar. Now we learned earlier on in the Lamed Gimel that the basic premise of the Gemara was that even by hadas, it's needed to be hadar. But here Rabbi Tarfon holds that it doesn't need to be hadar. Says the Mishnah. But another pointer about Rabbi Tarfon is that the way we just learned it, it indicates that he agrees with Rabbi Ishmael that you need 3 hadassim, you need 2 aravot, you need 1 etrog and 1 lulav. He just disagrees that out of the 3 hadassim, none of them need to have the top, right? But pay attention that Rabbi Tarfon didn't say a thing about how many of each you need. He just said that all of the hadassim that you have there don't need to have the top. That's all he said. This is, in the Rishonim, this becomes a topic of discussion, what exactly Rabbi Tarfon holds, as we'll get to hopefully in just a moment. So those are the 2 top shitot in the Mishnah. And then says Rabbi Akiva Omer, Keshem shel lulav echad ve'etrog echad, just like you need 1 lulav and 1 etrog, you also only need 1 hadas and 1 arava, kach hadas echad ve'arava achat. So that's the 3-way machloket Tanaim as to how many of each you need and how they have to appear. Now the Gemara asks the questions that we mentioned one by one. Tanya, first we're going to have a braita that explains the reason behind each one of these shitas. Right? Always braitas are more explanatory than the Mishnah. The Rabbi wrote the Mishnayot with precise words and very stingy in how it's spending word, because he felt that everyone has to know the entire code and text of the Mishnah by heart, and therefore it has to rhyme and it has to be very short, right? Rabbi Yehuda noten b'hem simanim, dasach atash ba'achav, it has to be short, it has to be precise, and therefore it's oftentimes what's not explained in the Mishnah, you find it by the students of Rabbi. Again, the legitimate braitas were written by Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shaya, and he was this Talmid Chaver of Rebbe. Rambam writes in the Hakdamat to Pirush Mishnayot that Rebbe wrote his Sefer, he called it Mishnah, and Rabbi Chia wrote his Sefer. They're trying to basically do the same thing, and he called his Sefer Braita, but again, Braitas oftentimes have more explanation in it, and this is one example. Tanya, we learned, Rabbi Ishmael Omer, Peri etz hadar, when it says peri, not perot, peri is a singular form, and therefore peri etz hadar means 1 etrog. Kapot temarim echad, kapot temarim also is written in singular form, even though that we read it kapot, the vav is missing in the Chumash, it's kapat. It's written kapat, we read it kapot. So therefore that's coming to also indicate that it's only 1 lulav. Anaf, etz, avot, that's 3, right? Now the Tosafot on the side asks immediately, says, wait a second, we use these words earlier on for having a species, it doesn't say hadas, having a species that its leaves are like a chain and they cover the stem and so on and so forth. Ayin Sham in Tosafot. What the answer is, but because the numbers are not mentioned, it's Anaf, Etz, Avot, it's 3 words, and that is indicative that you need 3 branches of Hadas, and Arve Nachal is mentioned in plural form, and Mi'ut Rabim Shenayim, the minimum of plural form is 2, so therefore you need 2 aravot. So that is the explanation of the Shita of Rabbi Ishmael. Says the Braita, Va'afilu shenayim ktumim ve'echad she'eno katum. Going back to Rabbi Ishmael's Shita, even if 2 of them are snipped on the top, cut off, the tippy top of the hadas is not there, only 1 of them it is kasher, says the Braita in Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Shlosha ve'afilu shloshtan ktumim. 3, and all 3 of them could even be ktumim, because again, he does not require the concept of hadar by hadassim. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Kshem shelulav echad ve'etrog echad kach hadas echad ve'arava achat. Rabbi Akiva holds that one of each is what you need, and that will be sufficient. Now says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Amar lo, that would be not necessary. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Yachol ye'etrog imahen ba'aguda. We know that we bind together the three species of lulav, hadas, v'arava. So knowing that, says the Gemara, can we suggest that etrog also should be with them? Because once you're bundling them, let's bundle all of them. Now, this obviously would be in the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda that holds that you need bundling, right? That by itself is a whole debate that we have had twice already before. But if you understand that the species of lulav have to be bundled together, why don't you just suggest that etrog should be also with them? Wouldn't it be nicer? It would make it much easier for the hakafot. You don't have to hold the two together and the sidur on top of it, and you're damaging your hands and the etrog and the sidur. Just have one of all them bundled together, you have one hand, and you'll be good to go. It says the Gemara, no, because you have to read the punctuations of the pasuk properly. Look at how the pasuk is written. The pasuk says, "Ulkachtem lachem beyom harishon, peri etz hadar, kapot temarim." Try to see the theme over here. Peri etz hadar, kapot temarim, ve'anaf etz avot ve'arve nachal. What do you see? Well, the pasuk clearly puts the and between the three last ones. It says lulav and hadassim and aravot. But there is no and connecting the three latter ones with the original, the first one, which is etrog. So the way to read it would be pri etz hadar, comma, lulav and hadassim and aravot, which is together. The end in between the second and third, and the third and the fourth, binds them together in one group, and hence that is what the Torah is coming to indicate, that the three last ones should be bundled together, and etrog is standing alone. Says the Gemara, we'll read it through. So Amar Rabbi Elazar, Yachol ye'etrog imahem ba'aguda. Ba'aguda achad amrat vechinemar peri etz hadar vekapot temarim. Do you think the pasuk says peri etz hadar vekapot temarim? It says, and it doesn't say vav, doesn't have that vav between the first and the second one. Vehalo lo nemar ela kapot. It only says kapot, which indicates a comma before that, and therefore the etrog is alone, and the three next ones are going to be bundled together. And then the Gemara continues. He asked him, and how do we know that you can't bring only three of them if you have only three, right? You don't have the fourth one. I remember when I was a young teenager back in Iran, it was so difficult to find kosher arba minim. The first year I came here, actually came right before Yom Kippur, a few days before Yom Kippur. Between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur we got here, and Sukkot was like right after. I walked into a shul on Sukkot, the first Chag, and I couldn't believe my eyes that every single person had their own arba minim. I almost fainted. Because back in Europe was not, no, the Buda, actually in his shul, he's talking about the biggest shul in his place, right? Rabbi Chaskel Landau is the undisputed Gadol Ador, and he was the only one that had a arba minim. Everyone had to stand in line. Actually, this is very reminiscent of the fact that he was very against saying Lashem Yichud, right? He felt that movement of people getting into saying Lashem Yichud and this is a wrong one, not for now. Of course, the Sfaradim and Hasidim were very, very strong because of the Arizal and that. And when people were in line to get, got like 10 seconds with his arba minim, because everyone was in line. You would say bracha, right, and letilat lulav, shehianu, and you did your nanuim in 4 sides, and yalla, next person. Right? That's how it was. And he would ask you first, are you going to say l'shem yichud? Yes, yalla, you don't get it. Next, that was well, people only had one set of arba minim in a shul, 2, 3, maybe maximum. And I remember one year, I must have been like 15 years old. I really tried to have my own, right? So in the ghetto of the Jews, there was a etrog tree, right? The old ghetto of what they called mahale, and I found the etrog. So the evet probably was kasher, nothing hadar, okay, nothing like the things that you find over here, Baruch Hashem. And then I found a lulav that was kasher, aravot was easy, and hadassim was a problem. Hadas mishulash was a problem. After a month of working, I didn't have arba minim, right? So each one of those went to someone else that was using it, and so on and so forth. But that's the idea. So how do you know that if you have 3 of them, but you don't have the 4th, at the end of the day you can't do it? Each one of them is ma'akev, the whole set. If you have 3 gorgeous species of the arba minim, you don't have the 4th one, you can't do it. How do you know that they are ma'akev? Zeh Talmud lomar ulkachtem. When it says ulkachtem, it's coming to indicate that it has to be lekicha tama. It's like a notarikun. Ulkachtem lekicha tama. Lekicha tama means it has to be a complete lekicha. If one of them is missing, it's not complete lekicha, and therefore the whole thing is invalidated. Says the Gemara. Now the Gemara asks the bomb question that we asked in the Mishnah. So wait a second, can we understand together what Rabbi Shlomo actually holds? So he says you need 3 hadassim, 2 of which could be ktumim, 2 of which could be snipped on the top. So frek the Gemara, what does he actually hold? Does he hold that katum is pasul? If he holds katum is pasul, why 2 of them could be ktumim? Or maybe he holds katum is kasher. Then why does he require one of them to be not katum? Let all 3 of them be ktumim and kasher. Manafshach. However you slice this is a problem. Mimanafshach. If you need complete ones. Libai nami kulu. All 3 of them should be shelemin. If it doesn't require shelemin. Afilu chad namilo. Then even one of them should not have to be shalem without the top being snipped, says the Gemara. Amal bira. This is a powerful question, right? It's a very confusing shita. So bira, which is the name of a person, Amar Rabami. The name of Rabami said, Chazar bo Rabbi Yishmael. The Rabbi Yishmael was chozer. He retracted his psak from this that we just mentioned. Now, which means Rabbi Yishmael is saying you need 3, but then afterwards he says only one of them has to be shalem. Says Rab Ami, what he means to say is that he used to say 3 is needed, 3 complete ones, and then afterwards he retracted and he said only 1 is needed. And therefore when he says 2 of them could be ktumim, it's saying that those 2 are as if they're not there, because if it's katum, it's as if it's not there, right? You can have them there if you want to. It's not a problem because it's the same species, but as long as it is not complete on the top, it's as if it's not there. Now this, by the way, opens room for the tosafot that we have over here. The temanim, for instance, they have many hadassim. Has anyone seen the temani sets? They have dozens of hadassim. It's a massive thing that they hold together. And so the Tosafot says, if you have more than necessary, it will be kasher as long as you don't have a 5th species. That will be Bal Tosif. That will be the Isur of adding to the Torah. But if you want to have more than the amount of hadassim that's necessary, that's not necessarily adding to anything. It will be okay. Says the 3rd Tosafot in the Amud, afilu noten kama hadasim ve'kama aravot belulav en ze bal tosif. This is not considered bal tosif. Afilu leman da'amar sarich eged. Even if you hold that you have to bundle them together, and you bundled all of these together with the lulav as one, still would be kasher. And I'm ken mosif min acher, unless you are adding a different species, there will be a sur of bal tosif. So here, basically saying those two that are not shelemim, that are snipped on the top, it's as if they're not there. So he retracted his pesak, so now we don't have even Rabbi Shlomo that holds you need 3 hadasim. He also in the maskana holds you need only 1. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, halacha ke Rabbi Tarfon. Surprisingly, halacha over here is like Rabbi Tarfon, that needs, again, in the Braita it became more clear that Rabbi Tarfon actually does need 2 aravot and 3 hadasim, because in the Braita, when the Gemara explained the wording of the Mishnah, Rabbi Tarfon, if you take a look, the line starts with Katum, Rabbi Tarfon omer shlosha, you do need 3, ve'afilu shloshtan ktumim. So what we do turns out to be more like Rabbi Tarfon than like Rabbi Ishmael, because Rabbi Ishmael at the end of the day retracted the 3 necessary number, and he said only 1 would be sufficient as long as it is complete. Rabbi Tarfon says, no, we do need 3, but it doesn't have to be complete, because even katum is kasher. We do not require to be glorified and beautiful. The psul of hadar is only a psul by etrog and by lulav, but not by aravot, and sorry, not by hadasim. So says the Gemara, ve'azda Shmuel etame. Shmuel who holds halacha is like Rabbi Tarfon. We're going to prove it. Azda Shmuel etame dama lehu Shmuel lehanahu de mezabni asa. Shmuel has a story that he spoke to the dealership of the hadasim, right? So this is the second time that we have a conversation between the Chachamim and the businessman in Arba Minim. It sounds like it was a big business back in the day. As well, we had the Hanahu Avunkiri in the Flamed, and here we have, that's a famous one, here we have talked away in Lamed Amud Bet, that Shmuel spoke to the people who dealt with selling Hadasim, and this is a threat. This is like price control. Back in the time of Chazal, he told them, apparently there was also, whenever you have a Jewish item that's very much in need, the prices could skyrocket, and said Shmuel to the sellers of Hadassim, he said, well, you better price control yourself. Ashvu vezavinu, bring lower, you're competing with, all of you have to bring your prices lower. If you don't, ve'ilo darshina lechu k'Rabbi Tarfon, I'm going to get the podium, and I'm going to give a shiur klali, and I'm going to say halacha is like Rabbi Tarfon. Now, what happens if I say halacha is like Rabbi Tarfon? You have the difficulty of finding hadasim, which, as we mentioned before, is even more complicated than all the other arba minim. The most difficult thing to find a kasher le'ma'adarin is hadasim, more than a etrog. So the reason that you have a business is because people love mitzvot and they want to have hadas meudah that's not snipped on the top and is mishulash and all that. And every branch of hadas could be only 1 hadas. If you have a long branch and you don't need to have the top, hazaku baruch, then you could snip it every 3 tfachim, will be another hadas, right? So he said, I'm going to go out and darshan, you don't need the top, and there goes your business, right? So you better act. By the way, the Magen Avraham writes, there's a mitzvah of having fish lechavot Shabbat, right? And the poskim discuss what happens if the business people skyrocket the price of fish, because the goyim know that the Jews will pay anything for kavod Shabbat, right? Especially taking in consideration that the Gemara says in Masechet Betzad Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, that all the parnasah of a person is also the same Gemara in Ba'abat Daf Yud. Gemara says, "Kol mezonotav shel adam ktuvot lo mirosh Hashanah vad Yom HaKippurim." right? Your business is it. Aside from the expenditure for Shabbat and Yom Tov, and for the tuition of your kids to go to a proper school. So that becomes very important now, what school your kids go to, because if you're sending to those schools that I'm thinking of, but I'm not saying, then it comes out of your own pocket, right? Only if you're sending to proper schools, then it's considered in that Gemara. So this is a misunderstood Gemara, by the way, because Rambam in the Chod Yom Tov adds in one cute thing, which is very essential, key, what he says, lefi mamono. It doesn't mean go write a $2,000 check for every Suda and buy a steak, rib, and whatnot. If you're not holding there, you're not allowed to do that, because this has to be lefi mamono, has to be kefi mamono, within your bracket of parnasah. You're pushing your limits a little bit. Sorry to disappoint you, but that's what the Rambam writes. It does not mean that you're just going to be unlimited and be irresponsible, but nevertheless, we know that. So Rambam says, if the goyim skyrocket the price of fish, we've got to stop buying fish. The chacham is going to get up and says no one is allowed to have fish until they bring lower the price. This account, the price control has been a thing in halakha and choshen mishpat. Also for rent control, there's a massive discussion now for now. But nevertheless, he said, I'm going to darshin for you like Rabbi Tarfon, and so on. So this is an attempt from the Gemara to prove that Shmuel holds halakha is like Rabbi Tarfon, right? Says Shmuel holds halakha is like Rabbi Tarfon, and he's because. How in the world would he say, I'm going to darshan like Rabbi Tarfon, right? Is he just giving an empty threat? Or is he saying, I really hold halakha like Rabbi Tarfon? The Gemara says in Baba Kama Daf Tet, right? Hidur mitzvah ad shelish. That when you want to glorify Ze Eli V'Armeu, Elohei Avi V'Aromenu, it's a mitzvah to be mahader b'mitzvot, right? So when a person is doing betterment of mitzvah, you're supposed to spend money at shelish until a third, right? Milagav, milabar, it's a different discussion how you cheshbon that amount, but if it's more than shelish, then there is no mitzvah really to do it anymore. So therefore, he said, I really hold halakha is like Rabbi Tarfon. It's nice to have the ones that have the fresh tippy top, beautiful, it's gorgeous, amazing. Hidur mitzvah. But if you're already misusing that, so I'm going to go and tell people what the ikar din is, and then your business is going to be going down the drain. Mara says once you add it, just paskin al like Rabbi Akiva, right? That's even better. It will cut their business to 66% down, right? Because you only need one out of the three, right? So it says once you add it, ilema mishum demekel, says Mara, what's the reason? But if you say mishum demekel because he wants to threaten them, right? So then lidrosh leuke Rabbi Akiva. Let's darshan for them. If it's a threat, give a bigger threat. If Shmuel doesn't actually hold like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon rather, let him darshan like Rabbi Akiva if it's a threat. Must be that he actually holds like Rabbi Tarfon. Demekel tfeh. The Gemara says no, that's not a raya. Because telatak tu mishchichi chad velo katum lo shchiach. It's a bigger threat to paskin like Rabbi Tarfon than Rabbi Akiva, because regular hadassim that don't have the top is shachiach. You could cut each one of them to every 3 tfachim and so on and so forth. It will be amazing. It's easy. But to find one that the top is there, still intact, no one has touched it, it hasn't been damaged, and you have mishulash and all the other requirements for 3 tfachim, that's harder to find. So therefore, he gave them maybe he doesn't really paskin like Rabbi Tarfon, but he gave them the ultimate threat that if you don't stop skyrocketing the prices, I will darshan like Rabbi Tarfon to bring down the prices against your will, and that would be the price control in the time of Shas. But Zat Hashem will start the next Mishnah in the days to come.